You guys might have noticed that when the major was going on, I was actually getting quite annoyed, wasn't I, with all those BS upsets that were happening, all these teams that you knew were never any good, and literally all they'd need is a good hour and they'd be cooled right off as well, wasn't it? So it was quite hot, actually. Yeah, their form was good, but it was irritating me. It was getting to me. You know what? It really stuck in my throat, the way that those teams robbed the mighty heroic, etc., from going to the final. All those great squads, Ents, Spheres that we all wanted to see do more, but they didn't because of all these little rats that came out of FPL like a sewer and then just came up and like Camus the plague, just infected our whole beautiful civilization we used to have, where majors were the pinnacle of our society, like Gorman Gas or something. I'm putting all the Straight Fire references in here. But you know what? Speaking of Straight Fire and tempering things, obviously I wish for the majors we just had the freeze pipe technology, because you see the freeze pipe, this is one here, this is the Martini bubbler. I'll show you just to show that it really is. So it's in here. This is the Martini bubbler. They have all sorts on the freezepipe.com. They have bobblers, they have bongs, they have the freezepipe itself, they have dab and oil rigs. I'm not talking about Chevron Evil Genius. It's not that sort of oil rig, you know, one that's actually good for the world. Well, debatable whether meat smoking weed is good for the world. Good for me, at least. So all you need to know is, if you have a freeze pipe, it has that food-safe glycerin chamber that you put in the freezer section for a mere hour, or if you're using the blunt tip, just 20 minutes. And then after that, all the smoke's cooled, isn't it? And now it's just an enjoyable experience. Not like watching Zero just win a major playing against some kid and the dog or whatever. I don't even know. Shout out to some kid and his dog. Anyway, hey Cypher, welcome to the show. So, by the way, if people don't know, 10% off LFN, thefreezepipe.com. Right, there we go. So it's all good. It's just a commercial. Nothing awkward about that. It wasn't referring to anyone here. It's all good. It's all good. You're one of the good ones, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. By the way, technically, just say at the outset of the episode, because spoiler, the whole point of the episode is not to like break this news. Obviously, Cypher is technically on Into the Breach. He is just benched at the moment, / self-benched. And you will have heard rumours out there of where he might end up. Maybe he's going to be on a new team. And all I'll say is just keep your eyes peeled. You'll probably find some out soon. Interesting approach. But we won't be talking about that in this episode for obvious reasons. So, right, Cypher, whenever we do this show, the person who's the guest, it's like Fight Club. You have to start first. So what is your first point? What is your good point you have picked for us?
Okay, a good point is G2 winning Cologne without making roster changes.
Okay, bold.
I think that is a key point where I think it's so underrated, but I think any other management, they would just instantly just say abort him and just find a new IGL or a new player and just say, okay, let's go from this, you know?
Okay. Give me some more though. Why do you like that though? What do you like about that?
I think,
like, basically, you're one of these people where, because obviously you're saying after the major, I'm sure a lot of people would have thought of making a change or in this player break.
Yeah.
You think it was kind of like you like the gamble of keeping this roster together?
Yeah, I think. I mean, as they said in one of the, I think, after he won Cologne, they had the little video, right? They said they're like a little family now, and I think that's always what you need, right? So I think it's really good, especially when you come from the UK scene where you do bad like 2 games in a row and all of a sudden you're kicked.
Yeah, so people don't know it's notorious in the UK scene. If you ever have one bad lad, you just instantly break the line.
You're gone instantly.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So it's always good to like see that, you know? It just shows like there's like longevity in a roster.
Yes. Exactly. The joke is, here's the joke, it only works for people from the UK scene. In real Counter-Strike, if you're a professional level, if you really fuck up an epic LAN, you might get kicked. In the UK, if you just fuck up an epic LAN, you might get kicked.
Literally anything.
If you understand the reference there, Straight Fire, whatever. Go on then, Maui, give me your angle. Because that's how your eyes get raised. You thought this was hot take point made when he came out the gate with that one. Basically, Cypher's the only person I've ever met who's actually coming out defending Huxley. We all spend our time just nitpicking him and tearing him apart. Yeah, we take like rounds he has, like it's a Zapruder films, but he didn't even do any of that. It wasn't even him. It's a fluke. Like, come on, Maui, what's your take?
Yeah, given it's a team like G2, you think that they would have the pick of the litter in terms of what IGLs they could upgrade with. I think it probably is a little bit more difficult than just pointing at Snappy on Ents and being like, come to our team. But for the most part, you know, they probably could have recruited, say, a Kixan, or maybe in some way they could have reached out for a Shuhei. And I think some people were even disappointed in the Shuhei lottery, if you even want to call it that he went back to Mao's. I think there was some deal there. Like, I'm not going to say this on, like, with certainty, but, like, I've heard mixed signals about the whole like Shuhei thing and how he went back to MAU's also like.
I think it was even publicly implied there might have been a thing in his contract that said they could buy him back or something.
I think that's implied as well.
That's what I'm referring
Sounds
to.
plausible. Sounds plausible.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. But I think there was something. I heard like another addendum to that where it was almost like if they like paid some ridiculous amount, like another team could kind of snipe him from that deal or something like that. I don't know, but either way, no, like with G2 sticking with the team, you look at some of the results and. Yeah, you would have definitely wanted a little bit more, most particularly at the major. But actually, it was looking kind of grim for a while because after Katowice at ESL Pro League, they actually lost to ENCE in like the 9th to 12th range, which is barely like scraping playoff. The playoffs were so big of that event. I'm pretty sure that was the playoffs technically. But then at the major itself, they went out 1-3, losing to Fnatic. And I think Kassad had the famous tweet there of I was watching HooXi, but basically he was just mad at the veto more than anything, I think, because they ended on Vertigo. But beyond that, the results, even at like Dallas, I mean, losing to a FaZe team that didn't even make it to the finals there, and then also losing to I don't think actually the spring final is that bad, losing to Vitality, but basically like with this team, I think that it's very easy to look at what HooXi and the inconsistencies that G2 have had since he's joined and say that you should pick somebody else up. But I think given the landscape, it was a little bit difficult for me at least to look at anybody else out there and say this would be pound for pound like a better fit, given the fact that we are limited by the fact that like there's major buyouts and like certain people are already locked into rosters. So I don't even know if it was like, I really actually wonder. What I wonder the most about this whole thing is like, did G2 even really look? Did they really were like, we have total faith in you, HooXi, or were they just looking at the landscape and saying, well, we don't really know who we'd even get beyond you, so we just have to deal with this?
What I would say on this one is this. I think it's a bold take because I disagree with it. Like, here's the problem. I'm probably going to do a video on this soon. Like, basically, me and Maui, I don't know what order these shows come out in, but on Hot Take Point Made, I also alluded to this. I have a rule, right, Cypher, that goes like this. If a team wins big tournaments, I actually don't think you can say the IGL is bad. I think it would just be ridiculous to think they're actually like outright bad. Like, obviously there's flukes every now and then, but like, let's be real, this team has also won Katowice and Cologne, like two of the biggest tournaments in the world. So here's the problem. In general, my rule is they can't be bad. Like, essentially, even if I don't know what you do, like HooXi, I have to give you some credit. Like, at a minimum, even if you're doing nothing, maybe in your team doing nothing works, maybe that's what they need. Maybe people need space, or they have the green light to do what they want. So on some level, I have to rationalize that it does work in this team. But my problem is this. I actually think this might end up being the case where maybe this will be like the exception to the rule, that I revise that principle. Because essentially, the way I would phrase it is like this. I don't hate it because they did win Katowice. Like, I probably wouldn't instantly kick someone after that. The main problem I have is this. I think it depends what POV you're looking from. Like, if you look at the POV of HooXi and what he's working with and what he's done, he's overperformed so far. He's won massive tournaments. My problem is it's all the NiKo angle. The problem is if you only look from NiKo, that player has to win the major. That's the one main goal he has in life. So my question is just, does having HooXi get him the major? I don't know about that, because not only have they been whack at the majors, but if you notice at the moment, like, this is the problem I have with the whole HooXi angle, is the tournaments he's won, his team has played absolutely lights out Counter-Strike. And that is not normal. Like, if you go and pick anyone now, take any of the great IGLs now, take like, you know what, we criticize Cadian all the time, mate. Bro, if Cadian had players that fragged out like the G2 players, it wouldn't even just won all these tournaments we're talking about. What are we even debating? Like, in this last one, they just won now. m0NESY and NiKo were having like a personal battle to see who won the MVP, and they play on the same team with zero role overlap. So basically, I'll phrase it like this. I don't think any in-game leader in the history of Counter-Strike ever had a better setup of players relative to them not being a great IGL. So I'll sort of say this as my last point. I'll say I'm a bit skeptical. Like, the reason I might have gambled on the upgrade did, even though Maui was very generous there and tried to make well, who would I get? Like, I would just literally go to Snappy and say, tell me how many zeros, mate, because if I get you, I think we can win everything. We can win the major, we can have an era, Grand Slam, we can win it all. So my problem is, it depends what POV we're looking for. I think for NiKo and G2's POV, you should be shooting for the absolute moon. You should be going for the absolute peak and saying, fuck it. With this roster, I want to win everything. I want to be the greatest team of all time. If you just Huxley, I think he has overperformed. I don't think he has been bad in any context. I just debate the idea that he's actually like a great in-game leader. I just don't buy it, unfortunately. Which sounds like haterism, but who gives a fuck? Got a good career doing it, haven't I? Anything else? Should we score on the next one? It's your point now, Maui?
It's just a bit of it's just like until we see it proved in like a video how much Huxley's contributing, it's really hard for.
By the way, there's a point I'll make. I'll actually verbalize it explicitly. Even though, look, be reasonable, because I'm giving you a fucking olive branch here, dickhead G2 players. Do it reasonably. Don't ever lie. But if he ever does do like a God tier call and you win a close game, just say in an interview, Huxley made that call. If you do that, that's late. But don't make it fake, though. Don't like fake it. But if you actually do it, if he did like a Golden Carrigan call, a 29th round call, and you win a game like that famous one, then just tell us. And then, like as you said, we'll give him credit. Give him his real credit. By the way, in general, jump in whenever you want, Cypher, if you have any follow-up points and stuff like that.
I like you said, I think it depends on the perspective, right? Like for Hooks, he's already done amazing in winning Cologne and Katowice.
He's killing it, yeah.
And it is, I mean, it all depends, like, I think on the roster, like you said. I think the way they win is if 4 of them are in the top 10 of the stats of the whole event.
That's true. They do.
It's not essentially Hooksy's fault, because I think he is one of the most selfless players, I think, in the scene right now, right?
Seems like
you see him, like, he'll drop an AK, he'll go with Glock and just jump around the corner for NiKo, be like, yeah, just sacrifice me, you know? Like, so I think it depends, like you said, what perspective he is playing. I think, sure, the individual can be better, right? But I think it is hard to say when you're also thinking of every aspect of the game.
Sure.
So it is very hard.
That's a really funny point, the fact that he's so selfless, because actually, I think back to the 2018 Na'Vi lineups or maybe 17 there. I think it was 18, where it was like Simple was playing with Zeus, and then Simple would have the Deagle, Zeus would have the AK. And if it's almost just like if you put Hooksy there, that would never happen. Simple would get the AK, Hooksy would run out with a Glock even, and he would drop the Deagle to another teammate on the roster. And so, yeah, actually, it kind of seems to fit. Like, it's also the anti-Jame, where he's not sacrificing one of his own players.
Problem is, though, you said it right, though. Like, if to win the tournament, you have 4 players in, like, the top 10. Like, bro, who else even ever had that? You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you the obvious comparison. When people have the audacity to ever mention how Huxley's done in G2 versus my boy LXEB, cocksucker, he didn't have JKS getting, like, a 1.1 rating, just fucking as the 4th best player, you idiots. Like, you know what? I'd like to run that experiment back and see how fucking LXEB does with JKS in that spot, like, because everyone forgets that change every time, mate. Like, this is another example at this tournament of how, like, I get why Richard thinks JKS is overrated. I mean, he even had a screenshot where, like, the thread of JKS not smiling was, like, the #1 upvoted thing over, like, G2 winning the event and NiKo being the MVP. Like, he is right. Reddit is obsessed with JKS. But if you actually look, like, relative to his role, he's amazing. Like, as, like, the 4th best player, he's fucking sick. Like, he's amazing anchor, clutch player, CT side. Like, he has, so, again, if that's your 4th best player, like, I'm not hating on Huxley. He's done what he has. It's just, can someone else have a go? Can I let someone, like I said, my boy Snappy, mate, he almost won this event without your lineup. Like, can he have a go with his fucking team? Like, I think he might have a chance of doing some pretty big things, like winning a major, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what I would like to see happen back in the day, you remember when it was, like, rumored that tabseN was going to G2?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, back then, I think tabseN in G2, I think would be incredible. Obviously,
that's a pretty fun one, yeah.
Yeah, if tabseN took a little bit backwards in terms of being more of like a selfless player, like a Huxley, I think that team would be incredible, you know?
No, but by the way, that's also a good shout, because part of the reason he almost went to FaZe back in the days, because it's NiKo that wants him, as far as I know. It was NiKo and Yanko who were fans of tabseN. So I think that's it. The other reason that might work is the other factor, if you go to G2, is NiKo has to be riding with you, whatever the fuck that he's saying. Whatever, we'll leave that one. Like, come on then, Maui, what is your good point?
Yeah, mine is that SunPius as a whole, just not a fluke. Basically, given what he did at Cologne last year, where he was on Movistar and just popped off, you know, stole the show in terms of just like the breakout performance of the tournament, I kind of had my reservations with that one, because I had watched Movistar before. Right before that event even, I covered the ESL Challenger Valencia that Movistar won, and to me, SunPius wasn't even the best player in that tournament for Movistar. Okay. Like it was Alex actually. So when Sunpius had that huge pop off at Cologne, I watched with bated breath. I was like, nah, I don't really know if he's actually going to continue that. But what has actually happened since then for me when watching Sunpius, and basically what Sunpius has done for himself, is he has really developed his game. Like as a T-side rifler, he is legitimately formidable now. I would probably give a bit of credit to Snappy, but I also did watch back the Sunpius's POV playing against Vitality, and it's like the things he does on Vertigo ramp, kind of like pretty much unsupported, just having good game sense, a good feel of when he should push. Like that's him. That's him actually delivering around multiple rounds, opening kills against people like ZywOo. Like he clean entried ZywOo with an AK. Like stuff like that would happen. So I'm thoroughly
what's the big deal about that? Everyone in the chat does that. If you talk, if I play him, I'll probably enter him. So it's all good.
Yeah, true. I guess Cypher can do it just as fine, just as well. But like,
tell me something new. What have you done for me lately?
with Sunpius though, like his CT side has been basically saying it's stayed just as good as what he did last year at Cologne when he was playing for Movistar. And it felt like when he did join ENCE, there was a bit of like that team had to find themselves. They had to put it together. I think finding Nerds really put them on the map in terms of just synergy. But like now, Sunpius is legitimately one of the better operators in the space now, and that just like for me, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I think he probably like he had to come into like fruition. I think.
Fruition.
Fruition.
Yeah. I think he definitely had to come into that since I think at the start of the team, like you said, he didn't have the amazing performances, right? But I think once he has everything set down, and as you can tell, I think he's a very aggressive AWPer, as you like peeking out gap on Ivy, killing 3 people, re-peeking, like killing the 4th. All this, I think that definitely helped, and you can see how much impact he has, not even just the fragging wise as well. Like I'm pretty sure if you look at Movistar now, no flame to them, but they're not exactly. I think they're doing terribly right now, if I'm not mistaken. Like, and I'm pretty sure that is mostly to do with some players. As soon as he went, their results just went downhill instantly.
Yes, indeed. But I would say on this one, it's weird because what's funny is when he had the pop-off last year, we were some of the people, Maui, who were trying to point out, like, settle down. Like, he's obviously not like the best opera in the world. And he isn't. Like, the interesting thing for me is this. One, I do think actually his game this year is different from last year. Last year, I thought he was more of like a standard style opera. Like I said, he was more like the Spanish device to me back then. It was just like you position correctly and you just kill all the people one by one when they come in the site. It's exactly what I want an opera to do. If you saw the way he played like against Vitality in this tournament, he was playing mega aggressive, like you say. Like some of those, the joke is he actually plays like he thinks he's fucking ZywOo or Simple or something, which he isn't. But like, fair play. If I have an amazing like opera, I do sort of want him to do that and believe he can win all the duels. Because I actually thought his pop-off was insane at this Cologne. Like, it was very, very impressive. There's a reason why, like, if ENCE had won, he would have been the MVP of the tournament. Then I also think as well, if you look at it, like, I don't actually think he's even close to the best player in the world or the best opera. He's not even in the conversation, but he is a big game player though. Like, what's funny is even when people think of like the major, well, they never got to the stage, did they? Like, bro, thus far, I tell you what, there's an underrated aspect. Bear in mind that these two Cologne events are massive stages. How often does someone in their first big stage events just dominate like this? Like, it's actually fucking very impressive. And then I'll just say the last thing, because it's a bit weird, is someone looked this up because of the Movistar run. Dude, you know it's mental. He's won like 5 best-of-3s against Vitality on both teams now or something mental. Like, that's ridiculous.
ZywOo,
yeah, every time he's actually outperformed ZywOo. Yeah, it's like stats are even better, which is like, look, the point, we're not saying he's actually better than ZywOo. Like, no, but directly head-to-head he has been, which is pretty wild. Like, think about that. Imagine someone telling you imagine someone at the beginning of last year about we going, oh yeah, by the way, there's going to be some Spanish AWPer who on land just like farm ZywOo every time. You'd be like, there's no way. And then I tell you, but he's actually not better than him. Like, it's just one of those weird kryptonite scenarios, isn't it? So it's definitely a cool angle, because the other thing about ENCE is, as a team, understandably, they're like those teams where they don't, like, they're like a football team in the Premier League side who has to have like god tier scouting. They can't really just sign the best player now. Like, they could never get like a Monacy. They have to find someone where it's like no one else really thinks they're that good, but maybe in our team he's like a little bit better. So same with Nerds. Like, these are just mega pickups. Like, what a fucking great job whoever GM'd this team did.
Yeah, it's like Endpoint. It's just like people just scout pick from them every time, and they always find these incredible players, you know?
Yes. Yeah, but here's the difference. They actually get the good ones in Ents. Other people sign all the other players. Oh, yeah, he's great as well in Endpoint. And then some of them are just all right. You know, they're in Sprout for the next 2 years or whatever. So
Ents is like the rich man's Endpoint, and they're not even like the rich man's team in the league or anything like that. I had the stat ready actually for Sun Pius versus ZywOo. For first kills in that Vertigo series or that Vertigo map that they played, he was 4-0 and he went 7-1 against him just on that map. Just
oh, by the way, there was also a stat, if you remember, in that semi-final, where in that semi-final alone, Sun Pius was like 21-3 in like opening kills, which is like, like again, like, you know what, fair play, I did it to Huxley, so I'll do it to Snappy. It's like, you know what, bro, Snappy called an amazing tournament, but I'll tell you what, you're going to win a lot of series if your fucking AWPer goes 21-3 on openers. Like, spoiler fans, he's not telling him, go opening kill. Like, that's not a thing, is it? Like, that's just fucking Sun Pius snapping, and he was fucking snapping in that semi. This guy was bonkers. Right, let's do mine then. My good point. It's pretty on brand, but I'm actually going to do this. I'm not doing this as in a layup. I'm actually going to do it because, to be fair, Maui, you'll remember, I did make this point against Nico when he won Katowice, which is when Nico won Katowice, I sadly had to do as an ugly point, if you remember, that like, yeah, on paper, it's cool for his resume that Nico won. But if you remember, he wasn't vaguely the MVP of that one. That was the one where it was like Hunter was the best, or maybe you had like, I think at the time it was even JKS was popping off. Like, that was the one where actually, like, Nico was pretty quiet in the final, if you remember. Not only now has Nico won Cologne, which he'd never won, a massive prestige event at the end of CSGO. Dude, he was clearly the best player doing it as well. Now, look, if you want to go with Modesty because you prefer him, that's fine. He was very good as well. But Nico was I actually think, in light of the fact this guy has this rep as like choker, he doesn't play well in finals, this is one of the best finals I've seen in a long, long fucking time. Like, this was almost like a masterpiece. Like, I would genuinely struggle to find, was there even a half he had that was bad in this whole 4 maps? Like, I thought he played fucking lights out the whole time. It was insane to me. So not only did he win it, but like he won it, mate. Like he was the bus driver, Maui. He's the reason they won this Cologne.
Yeah, I mean, Nico was phenomenal in this one. It's in some ways the only thing you could have like asked for more from Nico in this is just play better opponents. Like,
yeah, exactly.
If he took down all of these like legendary teams en route to that grand finals, I think people would probably speak of it a little bit differently.
He basically got fucked by Astralis, right? Because if instead of Astralis it was Na'Vi or FaZe, there should be way better scalp to take, wouldn't it? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, at least he was able to defeat Vitality though in the group stage. So I think that was like for a lot of people one of the big wins. But yeah, no, I mean Nico, it's great to see this happen for him because also I noticed that he didn't win an MVP medal since like IEM New York 2020, which was like online.
Yeah. Really?
And it's like,
it's not mental.
It's crazy because like he's been performing incredibly well. Like there are tournaments where he's been, top 3 highest rated player. It's just that his team is never winning it. And, that obviously matters in these MVP discussions.
I mean, the joke is, if people remember, he was mental at PGL Stockholm. It's just the problem is Simple not only won, didn't lose a map, but had like a 1.45 rating. It's like, what do you want me to do? Like, what can I do about this? Like, it'd be pretty harsh to go, sorry, Simple, you just don't get the MVP medal in it. Like, all right, bro. Go on, Cypher, what do you think about this Nico run?
I mean, I think he's the best player in the world right now. I think...
For your style of play, you must love him, mate. He's a fucking sick rifle, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I say fuck the AWP abusers. I think he's literally he's outstatting every single player known to man, even with a rifle. When he's being he can still peek a 1-bullet gun and still kill them every single time.
Dude, this guy was so godlike. If you remember, when the fucking Krieg was OP, he just wouldn't use it. That's like that shit, Maui. There's that famous thing back in the day where supposedly the Pope didn't want them to use like the crossbow because the problem is he thought it was like an unskilled weapon, and you should learn like swordsmanship and you should it's like chivalry or whatever. The joke is Nico was on that shit. Everyone in the world was like. By the way, I won't name names. I could, but I won't. There was some mad sus fucking players that were just getting carried by that Krieg on T-side. And Nico was like the last samurai, just like, no, AK only. Like, in a way, it's fucked, but in a movie, I love that. Like, that would be my character in a movie. I love that shit.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally the definition of a sentry gun, Yes. Like, he like, it's crazy, no matter what. He is, in my opinion, he should be top, he should be the best player in the world. He should be #1 HLTV. Especially if he continues like that level at these events, 100%.
Yes. Snake and Banter is brought to you by eSportsBet, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix. If you have never placed a bet on eSportsBet before, sign up using the referral link in the description box below, and you can take advantage of their first time risk-free bet. So as explained in the name, you make a bet, and whatever your stake is, at least in terms of what they'll return, up to 100 USDT, they will actually, if you lose the bet, return that to you. What you do is you make a bet on the site, you go to the customer support or the mod mail on the Discord, discord.gg/esportsbet, say that you did the risk-free first-time bet and that you lost, and they'll give you back your original stake. The classic pro tip of the meta on this one is it's usually better to bet on an underdog. That way, if you win, you get whatever the underdog odds are, and if you lose, you get the initial stake back, don't you? So either way, you're laughing. Now, if you don't have any crypto or you've never put anything onto eSportsBet, you can also play for free. You can go there, use our referral link, and get ESC, which is their new name for DJT, their own token you can play with on the site for free. And there are a bunch of ways that you can get this ESC as a bonus. You can go and join their Discord, discord.gg/esportsbet, and they'll give you 10,000 ESC. You can follow them on Twitter @esportsbet for 5,000 ESC, and you can follow esportsbet.io on Instagram also for 5,000 ESC. You can go and do all of these, and then when you've done it, go onto the Discord and message the mod mail or contact the customer support on the website. Tell them you did these promotions. They're only available for a limited time, so act now, do not delay, and then you can get some free ESC. You can make bets and predictions on the site, and also you can later convert to USDT. Check out esportsbet.io for more details. Right, come on then. What is your bad point, Cypher? What don't you like about the scene at the moment?
It's not what I don't like. I think it's what I find unlucky is how FaZe is playing.
Okay.
I think it's really like I think obviously they're legends of the game. Like I think Rops is, like I said, the best, one of those anchors, the best player like you can ask for, right? Twist, one of the best aimers in America or in the world. Yeah, Rain, one of the best entry fraggers. And I think what's happened to them is just like it's not sad to see because they'll bounce back, but it's like you expect every time they go into a tournament, I expect them to go into the finals or win it, you know, and then all of a sudden they just flop for some reason, and it's sad to see because they are just legends. So that's what I wanted to bring up. What do you think?
Come on, Maui.
I have a hard time explaining why FaZe is not performing as well. Like, because sometimes, in a weird way, they just got blown out a couple times. Like against Navi, they just got absolutely thrashed on Mirage. I think like. I feel like, I don't know if it's the calling or what exactly, because the thing is that at the Blast groups going into Cologne, I was pretty high on FaZe. I thought they looked really good there. I felt like they were playing to get like really nice and together, like they were trading pretty well. And then when I see them at this event, they kind of like just on any given day, they seemed like they can lose their teamwork fundamentals. Like by the end of the event, they actually were the third worst trading team, and they were by barely a percent. Like not even a percent were they like near the bottom of it. And that's kind of one of those things where it's like good FaZe has like 21% trading. Bad FaZe, like this tournament, had 16% trading per death. And so I just feel like sometimes I don't. It's hard to say where it comes from, but it does seem like some days, I think Kerrigan has actually talked about it in an interview, like sometimes when their just comms aren't good, they just can fall apart so drastically. And I think he was even trying to explain that like that's kind of what happens when you have an international lineup, that you're on some days you're just not everybody's gonna feel like they're gelling. But the thing is that you would think with a team like FaZe that wouldn't be the case, because they can always just like get back to that groove, that form that they find, and that can carry them and like will make them a great team. But it just is like so infrequent, and it's super disappointing. Like the reason that I like that you picked this and why I think it's really bad is this is probably the last CSGO big LAN. Like that's it. So this was another chance, and the reason I was high on them is that I always felt like when FaZe saw that there was a big moment, they had a knack for really like stepping it up and bringing that A game that I'm talking about.
Fair enough. I mean, I will say it obviously sucks because they kept the roster together. Like, on that angle, you didn't say explicitly there, but that's the other reason why it sucks most there. Because, like G2, if you keep your roster together and you gambled that you didn't make the change, you should be the stronger one at the beginning, like when everyone else is getting their shit together. Like, that's the problem. I don't mind losing to G2. As we saw here, everyone lost to G2. It's the Na'Vi loss that's criminal. That's like, bro, and like you say on one map, you got completely blown out. Like, if anything, it should be the other way around. Na'Vi should be the ones that, we've got a brand new roster. Of course, we can't be that good immediately. Like, FaZe Clan, it's like, mate, this is your chance. You win that game, you basically, like, and the thing, I know Astralis also got a lot of wins. I don't think Astralis would have beaten FaZe Clan personally. Like, I think it actually took that bizarre, fucked up set of results that it meant that it was Na'Vi that played them who were inexperienced themselves. So, I do think it sucks because if you just took FaZe Clan, again, at the risk of sounding like a hater, and they just take Astralis' spot in the bracket, I think it would be such an exciting fucking playoffs. It would have been even more crazy. And also, like we said about the G2 thing, it just is cooler if you G2 if you beat FaZe Clan than if you beat Astralis. Sorry, it just is. You know? At least in 2023. Obviously, you've had a time machine. Go beat them like 4 years ago when they were good. Right.
Yeah. I'll take my bad point now. So I'm going to preface my bad point with a few good things, so I'm not just like a huge hater on this one, but it's just that, like, good thing. I think Astralis are calling really well. Another good thing. I think Buzz is actually kind of lighting it up right now. He's
it's a bad sign where to make a bad point, he's listed all these good things for us. Yeah. Get ready for the setup. Come on, keep going. So let me see. We've got like Buzz.
Oh yeah. Oh, obviously, Blame F and Device are delivering in their own respects, and I saw some pop-offs here and there from Stare. Yeah. The bad is that I think Borup is just like really weighing this team down. I think Borup is pretty bad actually. I think like I tweeted out just an image without actually giving it further context because I knew I was going to dive into this on a podcast because Borup's numbers at this event, so 0.88 rating, but the thing is I actually went into his demos too to see like how is he performing this badly. Some like Borup has this like really strong knack for if he finds one kill in a round, he will actually almost always just like wide swing immediately. It's like I used to do this when I was playing like competitively like in ESEA main where it's like, oh, I get the one kill, I want to get more kills. And I feel like Borup does this too. And it's like, how have you not gotten rid of this bad habit where usually it's all about self-preservation for the next one? But Borup, like I looked it up because when I was watching the demos, I was like, okay, he's just throwing his life away after he gets one kill. 12% of rounds he multi-frags, which means he is getting less than 2 multi-frags per half in a game. Like that is astoundingly low. Like and even like compare it to someone like Buzz who isn't going to pop off the page, he gets 2.5 multi-kills per half, like at least like a 2-kill round, 3-kill round, etc. And Buzz is I'm just counting multi-kill rounds. I'm not even counting like a 3K's value more, a 4K or a 5K or anything like that. It's just simply having any round where you get 2 or more kills. Borup gets less than 2 per half. Like that's what we're talking about here. And like the thing is also people were trying to like come into my mentions about like, oh, like, you know, it's like this is what happens when you have to run out first. It's like of all the 38 people, I looked at this number too, like of all of the 38 people on T side at Cologne that had an above like 20% or above opening kill attempt rate, he had the 6th worst success rate. Like he was like he is not fine. Even though he is being sent on some missions sometimes to just try to find an opener, like he is like damn bad at getting openers. Like he is not winning his duels. Like sometimes I've actually watched where he like gets blinded by a flash and he literally just sprays his gun when he could have easily strafed around the corner. Like I was like, okay, this guy is either like shitting himself because he's so nervous to be playing on Astralis, or he is just simply not cut out to be playing at tier 1. So that's my bad. I think Borup is just like, if this Astralis team has hopes to actually be a contender, I think Borup either. So on one side, maybe he was just nervous as shit. Maybe he was so nervous to be playing for them at a big event like Cologne. But if that's not it, and this is actually really just how he plays, I just think that they're going to need to replace him.
Okay. What do you think of Borup, Cypher? Come on.
I think he's like a kind of momentum-based player. I think he needs to get comfy in this new Astralis. And I think, because his aim is insane, by the way. If you actually watch his mechanics, he's so good mechanically. Like, he could just whip these kills out of his ass. No problem, you know? I can't really say for sure what's the problem with him, but I mean, when you have Blame, Device, Stare, and Buzz all on your same team, you know, it's kind of hard to get stats is in the roles he's in as well. I mean, I kind of get the overpeaking part, what you're saying. Yeah, it's a bad habit, but I think he is quite fundamental to how he plays. If you watch him as well, he brings up the vibe of the team as well. You know, he makes jokes with blames and like all of this stuff. I think he just needs to get comfortable, then he will perform a lot better. Because, like I said, mechanically, he is really, really good. Like, insanely good mechanically. His aim is insane. But yeah, I just think he has to get comfortable more. I think give him some more time.
Right, my problem with the Borup one is the saddest thing if you Borup is, you wouldn't even be the one getting singled out. Like, obviously, most people are like, why is the Boz guy still there? A lot of people thought, but obviously he had a couple of pop-off games. I will say, even that's a bit overrated. If you ever go and look, even with the pop-offs, the Boz guy's stats still just normalised over the whole tournament, guys. He never had something insane. He just had a couple of really good series. But if you watch those series, he was part of the reason they were able to beat some of the other names. So the problem is, like you say, Maui, essentially almost everything else, at least for Cologne, every other marker was pointing up. Like, even Blame F's calling looked way better than you'd expect on Tisa. But the problem is the one thing almost inarguably, except in the one series against Nip, Borup was just a massive liability the whole tournament. Like, not just stats-wise, like on the screen, like you're saying. He's not making like mega impact players. You can be a player who obviously has bad stats, but like crazy impact. I think old school Jax is a classic example of that, where he's still winning rounds, he's still doing things. But that's to tie into what Cypher said. The real problem I think Borup has is, essentially, if people don't know, the identity of his career got fucked years ago. Like, a lot of people aren't going to know this. The team that later became Mad Lions, the one that was like those, that era, Borup was supposed to be the actual talent in that team, not the Bobskis of the world and these guys, Acorn. These guys later on had their spike. Back then, everyone used to tell me, dude, Borup's the one from this team, because as Cypher says, he had like the headshot aim, and everyone was like, nah, he's really talented. And so I heard, it's actually why I wonder if the reason he also joined this team, even though he just left, is because of Hunden, because he was Hunden's boy and he was around with him all those years, and that was even in the heroic lineup together. So I got the vibe personally, that's maybe why they brought him in. Like, that was essentially the analogy, Maui. In the same way as I assume that it's Daps who scouted Rainwaker, I assume it was Hunden's angle of like, right, well, if we just need someone to fill these roles, my guy here can do it, basically. But my problem is, I get the vibe, basically, that this isn't even who Borup's supposed to be. He was supposed to be like an aimer, he's supposed to be some sort of star player, but he hasn't done that. So he's tried to have a career by flipping into other roles. But this is why when someone can actually transition to other roles, like the classic ones like Valde and MBK and Zipmix, that's why to me they're godlike, because like they're not even supposed to play that role, but then they become amazing at it. I just don't think Borup's made the leap so far. It just seems very fucking lackluster to me. And the bigger issue as well that really sucks if you're him is there could have been a world where in general Astralis isn't that relevant now and they're like the 17th best team. If they're getting you into the semis of fucking Cologne and then you shit the bed, it's going to look even worse, isn't it, bro? Like, we can all nitpick who was the worst in a game where you came 12th place. But if you go out on the massive stage, we're all just watching, the whole world's watching you do nothing and just feed the game. So, sadly, that one's the most slam dunk one. I don't know yet. Maybe the Boz guy turns out to be all right. Maybe the financial angle weighs up. I just don't know what the upside to the Borup move is, personally. I don't get it myself. It's one of those ones where it's like, that was the weirdest move of them all. Even the Blame F calling one, I could almost see, like, I can't see why they did this move at all. It's just fucking nonsense. Right, here we go. This is an interesting question, because in theory, our guest might be biased. He might just fucking defend him because he plays FPL or some bollocks like that. But I actually do think, this is my bad point, I just phrased it this way. It's the culture of denial around ZywOo's problems in big pressure games. And the reason I bring this up is, people think I just did that to hit on ZywOo, Cypher. You were actually outplaying him in that fucking quarters at the major, mate. Like, you were just straight up fragging him every time you met him, basically. Whether he had the ARP, whether he had the rifle, whether he was back, whether he pushed up. Like, the problem is, that's not just a one-off. I've seen it too many times now. And the real problem here is, because I'm the historian, I don't, like everyone else, have to go off recency bias for some shit last year. Like, you know when people tell me Maniac has them all on fucking speed dial, mate. It's like, well, he had like the year and a half taken off because of online shit. Everyone did. Everyone did. Was simple winning secret majors that were being held. They all did. But the angle that he really means by that, Maui, is this. What he means is, if you look at ZywOo's career, he joined the scene in 2019, but you're right, there's like a year and a half you have to take off. And so realistically, he's had about, let's say, like, just about 3 years of real LAN play now. Right, here's what they don't do when they say that angle, though, Maui. They don't then say, and in contrast, all the other great players. No, that's where they fucked up. Because as I pointed out, I think this was the 13th prestige LAN that ZywOo's played at. 13. Right? Think about when CSGO began. All your legendary players played way less than that before they won their majors. What are we talking about? Get right. He was best from the beginning of the game. Shox, he was best the first year of the game. Olaf Meister took what, like a year and a half to kick in, then he was the best. Like, you know, these guys, people make it sound, Maui, like every other great player had like 50 prestige lands and then was really good. Like, and by the way, I'm not hating on ZywOo. It's not that he's bad. He's definitely not bad. But the problem is, every time you get in a big playoff match like this, if he underperforms or takes a while to wake up, I mean, I've said this before, Into the Breach almost won that match. That was like right there, at least early on in both maps. Like, that was totally right there. And so the problem I have is, if people want to make this guy the GOAT or the best player in the world right now, that's his current status, you get more scrutiny if you do that. Like, there's a reason why in sports we obsess about the superstar players. And my problem is, like, it's like, I think people have gotten to the point where they're not just defending him, they're just in denial. Like, essentially, their point, as far as I can tell, for real, Maui, is like, it just shouldn't matter that he has these underwhelming last maps. So we should just ignore that and just say he's the best now and ever. Like, that's the part that's too far for me. I don't hate on the guy. He's a mega player.
To me, this is kind of like a more meta discussion about fan bases and what attracts people to certain players, because I think that the people that are attracted to Simple, for example, are people that they do like to be a little bit egotistical. They like to be brash. They like to flaunt because they know their own worth in a work setting, or like they know that their own skill suit is just well adapted to whatever it is that they're doing, and that they feel like they put in the work and that they deserve the plaudits that should come their way. And they also recognize that there should be scrutiny if you do fail on your end too. Whereas ZywOo, to me, epitomizes the person that just is like, I hope I'm a soldier. I'm just going to do my job really well. Like, this is kind of how ZywOo has carried himself. It's actually how Apex characterized him too. It's saying it was actually to a fault that he would just kind of follow the instructions and just do it the best way possible, which is why Simple and ZywOo are so diametrically opposed in terms of fan bases, where simple people are like, they're ruthless, they're rabid, they're just gonna like jump on everything. And like the ZywOo types, it's very fitting that it's like the person that really like pushes ZywOo the most is Maniac, because, you know, he's very like hands off. He's very like just gonna be a little bit more meek about whatever take he has, and like that to me is like why they go one-to-one together. Whereas I think that is also kind of why like the people that defend him are like, why are you being so hard on him? He's just following his duty. It's like, well, the thing is that he's done his job to such an excellent extent that it's like, we don't grade him by the standard of someone that's just following their IGL's rules anymore. Yes. We have to grade him on this like all-time great player scale, or else if we're not gonna like throw that kind of criticism at him, then don't bring him into the GOAT discussion. Then don't even talk about him like that, because if you can't handle that, yes, he has his failures too, then why are we even comparing him to the all-time best players?
For sure. Any thoughts, Cypher?
I mean, for me, he's still kind of relatively young as well. He's 22.
Okay.
And I think he's still, I don't know, it's hard to say. I think he's on his way to becoming a GOAT still. I think him and m0NESY are the two people that will next make it become a legend or a GOAT, you know?
Yeah.
In these sentences. I think
they're both tracking on the scale.
Yeah, on the upside. Yeah. I get what you're saying about the big games. I think most of the time he does perform, but they're obviously off games. But I don't know. I think it's somewhat normal, including someone who's 20 years of age with the pressure of like a whole nation or his whole team on him, you know, essentially. I think he will have like some bad games, but like I said, I still think him and m0NESY are on the way to becoming the greatest of all time, for 100%. I have no idea what's going on in these big games. But
was it shocking to you when you were playing that quarters and like he wasn't setting you guys up? Like actually, you were sort of in the match against them most of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we were playing him, I definitely at a time thought he would just own me. Every time I PK ramp, I'd just die.
Sure.
I thought before the game that's what was going to happen, you know? But I mean, when you're in the game, it's kind of different. And, you know, you see these like weaknesses and stuff like this. But again, when we played him, again, he had these massive rounds. I think he won a force by him. He just pops off for like four 1-Ds all of a sudden. I think he's that sort of player that can just whip these rounds just out of nowhere. He is still one of the great, like, I think he's still one of the best players CS has ever seen. And I just needs to work in these big games, like you said, you know, like to win.
Sure. By the way, I'll even spin it into another point, which is like a bigger one, which is, on a lot of my shows, Maui, one of the main things I always say as a classic line is I say, like, Michael Jordan just ruined, like, sports narratives, basically, because of that whole thing. Like, he never lost, he always won. It was never even game 7, and he always hit the last shot. And they made people think all great players are like that. I made this point a while ago. It's actually when I made the video about Z-Wu, if people don't know. The majority of the all-time greatest players in Counter-Strike play worse in big pressure matches. Like, it's actually why I knew Simple would be the GOAT before he was the GOAT. Because even his, like, bad majors were like, does he ever play bad? Like, what the fuck? Like, it doesn't matter what team he's on. Essentially, if you don't know, after Simple, who's clearly the best major player ever, after Simple, dude, it gets mad sketchy. Like, go and look up people like Shox. You'll be shocked. You will actually be shocked at what his, like, stats at the majors are. If I tell you, go and look up, like, think of any of the GOATs, Get Right, coldzera. Some of these, like, they have some majors they're godlike. They have some that just bang average. Some of the worst turns from their careers sometimes then. And similarly, it's why on the NiKo one, I always thought people went way too far. Because he didn't win the Boston one, he has that rep of like, well, he just plays bad in finals. It's like most great players play worse because the pressure's more. And the problem is, in a movie, the pressure's more and then you win because that's a great story, isn't it? But the reason why that works in a movie is because it's not reality. Like, actually, it's so rare that people really do fucking dunk on every big final. Like, so in a way, I agree. If we're just judging players in general, people are way too harsh on Z-Wu and NiKo. My problem is just like I said, if you want to put him as the GOAT, then you're not even shadow boxing. You're literally putting him against the guy we all saw play. And by the way, that guy is fucking bonkers in big pressure matches. Yeah, he didn't win them all, but tell you what, he's pretty fucking sick. There's a reason why. I mean, Z-Wu's done this a few times, but there's a reason why Simple is the guy who's just routinely won finals while losing them. It's routinely won. Like, yeah. As in, even when I even made this point on Twitter that people just miss this. I know it's just anecdotal, like this isn't actually a reason why, it's just an argument from authority, essentially. But it is mental that even the Astralis players just go, yeah, Device, can you shut the fuck up? Because we're actually playing Simple, who's the GOAT. Now, if I was Device, I'd be like, we're fucking winning a tournament. Can't you, like, fucking big me up? Like, say I'm the best. Like, I'm getting the MVP and the trophy. Like, I'm the best. Like, he is the best, though, isn't he? We're the best team, but he's the best player. Like, what is this? Like, but in a fucked up way, that is, like, mad. Yep, that's how you know Simple's the GOAT, mate. He just is. No one can deny it, essentially.
I mean, Simple in his prime, there's no one like him, right? Like Simple in his prime, when he was averaging, like, 1.3... rating every event, every game is just, I think, undeniably the best player in CS history.
You know the funny thing as well, Maui? I even sort of agree with your point. I'll expand it. In a fucked up way, I actually think Z-Wu being too chill and cool a guy is actually what's fucking him up. I made a whole video how I actually think he has another gear to go to. The joke is, this is why I always say coaching is so much harder than fans think. Because normally you coach most of your players with all that cult shit of like, we win as a team, we lose as a team, don't be egotistical, play for the team. But then when you have some motherfucker like Simple, as people have now learned, it's actually a positive that he actually really thinks he's going to win every round, by the way. Like, most players, they don't have that mindset. Like, to me, Z-Wu's almost too human in that sense. He just actually plays, like, sometimes he has a bad game, but, oh, well, I'm just having a bad game. It's like, you actually sort of want your star player to be a little bit of an egotistical dickhead, because that is how you win the game, you know?
Yeah. I think, like, ego and personality, like, we've talked about this before on, like, other shows, is just, like, I care about cultural impact also, which is something that, for some pundits, they don't care about it, but I actually do. And I think of like other major MVPs in the past and like their impact, and I think of like Pasha Biceps. Think of the fact that everybody, when I talk to people about CS:GO who are like not even esports people, they know who Simple is. Like, that's how big he's gotten. Yeah. People will sometimes still even remember like coldzera's name and things like that. Z-Wu actually like hasn't really crossed that threshold for me, or even like for people that are like not fans of CS:GO, where they don't really seem to know him, but like Kenny S, obviously people know who he is. People know Get Right. Like, there's some kind of like legendary status to me that he has yet to claim, even though what he's doing in the server should merit it. But it's just like he doesn't have the big enough personality to actually like garner that sort of attention beyond the space.
As you said, though, Cypher, maybe it happens in CS2. Maybe next year and going on, it keeps tracking. Could happen. Right, okay, what is your ugly point, Cypher?
Jesus, I was trying to think of this, and I couldn't really think of an ugly point besides obviously the FaZe one I mentioned. I couldn't really say anything about that was bad about the team that is ugly, you know? I think we'll see. I mean,
what about this then? I'll tell you what. I've got one I can suggest for you because this is something we were talking back and forth on, like what could be an ugly one. So here's one. I actually thought this was a good one you suggested, but you didn't plump for it. So we'll just use this if you want. You said like there was a rumor that people were seeing came out during Cologne that like JL and Immer collectively cost $1.35 million. Yeah. Now, I think that's actually a perfect ugly, by the way, because I would set up a list, but I'll get your take. The reason that's not bad or good is because, look, they're good players. Like, if you're Navi, you got to get someone. The reason I think that should be ugly, though, is because collectively, how the fuck could those two players collectively cost that much money? Like, essentially, even if they were, let's just say, like, we don't know which one was more. I'm going to guess Immer was more, but let's guess, right? Let's say they were just equally at the same price. So essentially, 650K plus for each player. m0NESY was $600,000. Like Device was $700,000. Like that is bonkers money to be paying for these players. Like, and these are players where present company or included, they did only have one pop-off tournament. It's not like they've been fucking carrying for 3 years. Like everyone knows of the shit. Like no one even knows if these guys actually are going to be amazing. Like that. I think Ugly's the perfect one. It might end up being a good move, but holy shit, I think you got wrecked on those deals, mate. 1.35 million, really? Holy shit, was there really a bidding war for these players? Wow.
Yeah.
Go on, give us your take, Cypher. Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the buyouts in esports are ridiculous.
It's wild, isn't it?
I think, I mean, I'm not going to put names, but there's a tier like 2-3 player, and he's not like, no one will really know him, right? But he's putting out really good stats, and his buyout's 300K. He's tier 3. You know, it's just like, how is this a thing? How is this possible? You know, I don't get me wrong, he is really good. But, you know, when you're not getting paid a crazy amount of salary and you are essentially carrying your team in that sense, how is your buyout 300K? How are you stuck in this contract, you know? Like, it's just buyouts in the scene is ridiculous nowadays. I mean, you can kind of understand an org's point of view, but it's got to the point where it's just like, okay, 600K, 300K, you know, it's got to the point where, come on, like...
Yes.
Yeah, the thing that I saw was like cybersport.ru. Like, I don't know how and it was like 900K for EMA and then 450K for JL. And
if that's accurate, by the way, whoever the fuck negotiated the deal to get 900K for EMA, you are like esports executive of the year. You win automatically. We don't even need to see the other candidates. That's fucking mental, mate. What the fuck?
Yeah, wait, who'd they get? They got, after the Gamer Legion, got Nealon and Volt.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably still had 800K left over. The problem. Give me a break, I know. This guy's killing it, yeah.
That's so crazy.
Killing it. Fair play.
Yeah, I mean, like, the buyouts there, that just sounds stupid. I mean, JL did say publicly, like, you know, like, for someone with 3 months or whatever, 3 weeks on his contract left, like there's no way they wouldn't even pay that for simple.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like makes sense. If that's true, that you only had 3 weeks, surely not.
Yeah, surely not. I mean, but the thing is that like I don't trust players at all anymore when they say anything about contracts. So like I can't really take him at face value there. So I mean, I would hope that he's like being truthful about how much time's left on the contract, but like I don't know if he's necessarily stopping me from believing that it was an exorbitant buyout. Like maybe not the numbers that this website.
By the way, it doesn't have to be 1.35 million. If they were even 300K each, I think that's pretty much on the upper limit of what it should be for these players, you know? Because they're both gambles, like I say. Like no one, like even him, no one really knows he's going to do what he did at the major again. Who the fuck knows? Like it might just be a one-off, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
No hate.
I had 2 ugly points. We kind of like. I sent you one of them, but I kind of actually wanted to talk about the other thing with the
So we're not going to do the one you sent me, because here's the thing: the one you sent me is fucking delicious compared to your own takes.
Okay. I'll do my first one. I'll do my first one, and depending on how much time we have left, maybe we can go back to the other ugly point that I had, and maybe you might have covered it actually with your ugly. So my original ugly point is just simply that 9 are onliners. Like, I love watching 9. I think that 9 are really good, especially in these online tournaments. Like, their vertigo is so sick. They have so many ideas. They have so many plays. Even on Nuke, I think that they're really sick too. I actually thought their overpass was decent when I was watching them to prepare for, what was it, the Blastfall Showdown. Like, I watched them on a few maps and I was like, dude, they're doing a lot of work. They're like going for a lot of good rotations. The players are fairly skillful. I don't see like too many worries. Like I was watching games that they were winning because I was looking back to see like what are they good at, but I also was like not as concerned as I've been when I've watched them at the last few tournaments that I've seen, where it's like these players some of them just drop off a cliff when I watch them LAN versus online. Like I'm not gonna even single out Minio because he was the worst rated player at the event, but like some of the other guys that are on at Cologne, I mean, but like some of the other guys, the drop off from LAN to online is pretty significant. Like Hades is the one guy I feel like I can trust on this team, but I think it's like I think Kylar falls off pretty hard. I think Key falls off pretty hard from online to LAN, and like I think Key is the biggest drop off because he has online in the last 6 months 1.13, and then on LAN 0.97. And when you watch them play, it's just not the same team that you get online. Online, they are way more active. They seem way more confident with the duels that they're taking because they're being way more proactive. When I watch them online, it feels like I'm watching like a mini heroic where it's like, oh my god, they keep having ideas. But because I think on LAN, I think it's one of two possible things. One, they're just nervous. Two, and this is a huge assumption and it's total conjecture, is that there's a chance that like with 9, Nahrat is IGLing them online, because this was kind of my complaint with Nafany, with Groove, where it was like when I watched the comms videos back, it was like, okay, Groove is calling a lot online in these comms videos, and so I don't know if Nahrat's doing that. I don't know if he's giving them way too much input when they're online, because I will say that they are incredibly well drilled when it comes to online CS. Like they seem very on top of reactions and macro understanding at all points in time. But when I watch them on LAN, they sit a lot more. They don't really always make the same plays. Sometimes they're just in a passive setup, and that actually ends up exposing the inability of some of their players when it comes to just mechanics. And that goes for practically everybody except for, I'd say, Goofy and Hades. Goofy and Hades to me seem like they're pretty solid. Like Hades, we know is good on LAN. Goofy has been a pleasant surprise for me, but the other three just not the same team.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it can be a factor of things, right? It could be inexperience, nerves. It could be they're thinking too much on trying to anti-strat teams and stuff like this, you know. But I think online, in my opinion, their game revolves a lot around Key.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not putting up his masterclasses, you know, but sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. It's really hard because he is a big player in a you know, like a team aspect sort of thing, and he is a really good player. He just needs to transform it into LAN, and he probably can eventually. It's just going to be hard for him, you know, because the way he plays is so aggressive. But I feel like if a team will watch 5 of his demos, they'll catch 10 things he does, you know, and it's just these little tells that catch him away sometimes, and I feel like he just needs to get the habit of changing stuff like that, and he'll be really good to go. But I feel, like I said, I think he's got a lot on his shoulder in that team.
I will just say, the reason why I love this as the point from Maui Stick is because Maui was one of the people hyping this team at the major. And the reason why, even though, look, like everyone, the last few majors have been a nightmare for those coins because the Swiss systems are so insanely variable. It's incredibly very hard. So, like, it's not like I'm going to claim I got the other results right in the Swiss. But one of the reasons I had this team, I think I had this as like to be fair, I had the breach of my 0-3, but I had them as one of the teams that was going to do badly in the Swiss system. Fair play, I say it either way. Is because, mate, when I went back and looked, the real reason people were hyped is because, one, online player like Monty, fair enough, they were doing some shit, but then it's also that RMR. But bro, if you ever go look at the RMR, I looked at that and I was like, this is like fucking smoke and mirrors. Like, the reason they did well at the RMR is because Hades had a 1.31 rating and got 0.81 kills per round, right? Those are simple numbers in his prime. Like, that was never going to continue. Hades is the known quantity. We just watched him in End Skies. Like, he's a good average, like he's either an average tier 1 AWP or occasionally above average. That's it. That's all he is. He's not some simple like superstar talent. And that's the difference. The joke is if he was the unknown quantity, then maybe he's like a rising talent. Maybe he's the next Boros or something, but he isn't. Like, we already know that one. And then, as you say, the rest of them, a bunch of them just aren't as good on LAN. It's no hate. I mean, they may be too young in their careers, too inexperienced, like Cypher says. And also, I will say, the one angle I did actually get why some people hyped up 9 is, at least they're not just like 5 players just doing whatever like Monty. Like, they actually do sometimes play real CS. They look like they actually have a game plan. That's why I see why you did the angle of like maybe the coach called online, because they did look in some of the online games like they at least like meta-wise knew what to do in some of the rounds that might have made them have like upset potential. But the real problem is, like I say, to me, the actual like player strength, and I do think that is an important factor. I don't think it ever could have lasted at these lands. Like, people are expecting too much. They're just expected to. Because like you say, aside from the Hades, like where's the player here? Here's what you need to do if you want it to be a real underdog. Who's the player here that in 2 years from now is on like a top 5? There's no one. There's no one. Come on. It's not any here. There's no one, is there? That's how it is. Right, let's do it then. The last point of the whole show. This actually, it's going to end on sort of the high. It's just, this is why it's good as an ugly point. I'm actually just putting as an ugly that Axile only got to arrive and play the one playoff match. Because the reason I purposely picked that as ugly, not good, not bad, is because it still was fine. They got to the playoffs. They got through those matches. It was a great game when he arrived, but it was actually really, well, it was like this close to being a really great game. If they won that second map on overtime, the fucking roof would have come off the place. Cloud9 themselves might have believed they could win. Everything. So the reason why I pick it as ugly is because we only got to see 2 maps from him. But the rest of what we saw, and especially how they played with Buster, actually suggested that all of this hype that we all have, it isn't just on paper that they look insane. Like, there's some real potential with this squad. So that's why I say it's my ugly, because I just wish I could have seen the whole tournament with Axile. Like, I think that would be a really interesting prospect. Like, what if he'd actually had the chance to fully warm up through the whole event, play a bunch of other teams, and then they get to like a semis or a quarters? Because actually, I am hyped about this team. I am hyped. They look like they could be really interesting.
I mean, this team could potentially create an era, no? Like, it's got one of the best authors, best writers, best IGLs, everything you can ask for, no? It's literally, they could create an era, like, so to speak. It is
insane. The ceiling's crazy, yeah.
Exactly. Like, any of those players, like Shira, do you remember that game on Vertigo, but he went like 40 to something? Like, it was crazy. It's like, anyone can pop off and just carry a game. And I think that team is just amazing. They were just, like I said, they have the potential to create an era.
It would have been nice to see Axile the whole time. What I was doing for like my own mental gymnastics was just thinking, okay, how did Cloud9 do in this game? Imagine if it's just Buster or Axile there for Buster, which to me is generally over the course of a series, you're adding like 14 more kills.
Sure.
And so, for example, the some of the series that were a little bit dicier, like the Fnatic one, for example, like if that were just Axile versus for
They'd
Buster,
probably just win that series outright, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I was thinking about it. Because
yes.
I mean, no, like I'm not even throwing shade at Buster, but it's just like he probably didn't even know. They said 1, they didn't even practice with him,
yep.
And 2, if I'm Buster, I'm probably not playing that much Counter-Strike because unless I know I have a tryout on the horizon, it's like, okay, I got bench. I'm just gonna take time off for a couple weeks and then just see and reevaluate things. So I don't even like, but he was the worst player in that series. He went like 59 ADR. Like if that's just Axile. Oh, they're just gonna clean Fnatic up, like no doubt in my mind. So this could have been a completely different tournament run actually, because that sent them to the lower bracketed immediately. They to me were a team that had potential to. I don't know if I would have pinned them to like beat ENCE and Heroic, but who knows? That could have actually secured them a semifinals berth, and we could be writing a completely different story for how Cologne went down because Axile in the one series that they played against Vitality, he was all right. I didn't think he was that good in the first map. On the second map, he started to show some of that what I was used to with Axile, but you could tell like they just didn't seem to have that level of cohesion, which is probably just like, you know, you're just moving a guy in. Like even if they practice for weeks before with him, it is like match day, hey, we've been playing with one guy for 5 days before this. Like it's difficult to just bring that mojo back. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but I'm still super high on this team. I still have it. I'll keep a pin in it that I think that this team is going to win an S tier event by the time the CS2 major rolls around, including that event itself.
By the way, Cypher, obviously we'll talk about the old lineup with Indefani and that, but did you ever used to scrim against the Cloud9 lineup? Have you ever done it?
I scrimmed against them a few times of like Nafany and Inters on it. I scrimmed against them a few times, and
because I've heard they're mega in scrims. I've heard they're like demons online.
Yeah, they are. They're like they practice every scrim to win.
Right.
So like it's not even to just practice to prac sometimes. It's to literally to win the game, and you can tell by the way they play. It's proper CS every time. It's crazy, you know. And they're super drilled. And I even played the new C9 roster. And you can tell like the cohesion is lacking, but they're still really good and insane still, you know? It is really, and it's exactly the same, but they still practice to win every time. And I think that's what like Groove does as a coach. He sets these fundamentals into the team, into everyone, that no matter what, you're just playing to win. and it's really nice to see, I think.
By the way, before the end, we should just ask you a few questions and then we'll wrap the show on that. Because one thing I do want to ask you is, are you one of these people, like, should we actually treat the major like it was your audition? Are you actually going to be that good? Are you going to do all that shit in your new team? Is that who you are? Do you really believe it?
I mean, I'd hope so, right? Like, I think my playstyle is not going to change. I'm still going to be taking all these ridiculous fights and everything. I mean, it's a fact that if I can keep these stats up in the numbers that I did do, but then yeah, I would hope so. You know, I'm not my playstyle isn't going to change. I'm not going to change. So as long as I keep playing how I am, I think yeah, then yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, I guess, about like the in-game leading. I talked to Thomas on the desk after one of your guys' matches about like the style, because he was saying that you can't play like tier 1 teams when you're not using tier 1 players, and it felt like when he said that he means like you're not going to do slow defaults, you're not going to try to make some crazy smart mid-round or anything like that. And but with you guys, like how short was your playbook? Like was it just long enough to like get you through the major, or what?
I mean, to be honest, we had strats, pocket strats, you know, and we obviously had defaults, but our playbook wasn't that big at all. I think at a major we relied on individual strength, and I think that's what everyone brought. You know, like in ITB, everyone brought like individual players. Like everyone, like I said, Volt is incredible, the best team has ever had. Crucial, insane AWPer. You know, everyone is just insane, and I think like that's what you need. Like I said, our playbook wasn't that big. It was just how our individuals structured themselves in that team, where they could go for whatever they want. They had full confidence, and that obviously helps, you know.
Because one thing I would ask as like a last question for me about that particular run is, this is why I thought it was a bit unfair when a lot of the analysts tried to make it sound like your team and people like the Gamer Legion were just actually just better overall teams. You know what? You had a good run here. They were just better teams than some of the top teams. It's because, like, to me, the Vitality series is the best example. I don't even talk, aside from Zemu playing a bit whack on CT side, I don't really actually blame Vitality for how hard that match looked, Cypher, because some of the stuff you guys were doing, like nobody in tier 1 just blind, like with no utility, just fucking wide swings into a site or vertigo on the fucking air ramp. Like, that's how you get completely torn up if you're at tier 1. Like, in a way, the way you played was like, it was mega gamble style, and you just got lucky. It hit, right? It just hit a bunch of times. Like, I don't blame Vitality. That it's not like you guys reinvented Counter-Strike, is it? You actually played, like he said with the Thomas angle, it was kind of like you played a high variance style to see if you could just gamble and get the kills, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a risky style, and I think that's what you have to do against a team who's fundamentally better than you. You know, like I think that's just exactly how you play. And I'm going to say no, we should have won the Vertigo.
Yeah.
I put my hands up to it, like in many interviews or whatever. I tumbled that Vertigo on the CT side, but like I said, I think that's how you're meant to play against a team.
Yes.
Like Vitality, FaZe, G2, like just play with full confidence.
Yeah, by the way, shout out to Thomas. I not only thought, is he right on that, but to say in an interview, he's absolutely right. Like, you'd actually be a fool in that scenario to try and play like your fucking 2018 Astralis versus a team of, like, I think how skilled their team is. You just get destroyed. I think it's quite, especially if someone's coming and they don't think they're like a favourite for the tour, I think it's a great way to play. As a one-off approach to try and get lucky, it worked.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it favoured all of our playstyles, right? It favours mine and everything. It favours like Volts to do these lurks and clutches and stuff like this. It favors everyone's. So,
oh yeah, by the way, let's do that then. As a last point, since obviously he did actually get, if people don't know, to join a pretty good team now. Obviously, the other player who had a good performance at the major particularly was Volt. And he's someone who obviously he's in like, he went to the fucking Gamer Legion team, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to lie, Volt is my favorite team I've ever played with. He's insane. Okay. Like, I think he's a high chance to make it tier 1. It's not just how good he is individually, but his game sense and how hard working he does. Like, while you're playing the prac, he'll put these notes in and send it to the whole team after it, you know? And then it was with his demos and stuff like that. He's insane. Like, Volt is really good and deserves all the success.
Fair enough.
I have one more quick question then. If you guys were so like high skill dependent at the major, what were your hours past 2 weeks like when you were
you grinding?
Prepping for that?
I mean, I'm pretty sure the majority had around 100. Yeah, like 100.
Fair play.
90.
That's good.
But I mean, like some people in the team, obviously they play better with high hours. Some play better when they're just chilling, right? So I think me and I think a few others had like 100, 90, and then some had like 40, 50, you know, and then doing what they just wanted to do, essentially. I think it just, I think it depends on the people, but yeah, that's what our hours were.